And
hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the 65th episode of Comic Beat Insider. That's a mashup podcast that Heidi McDonald and I started a year ago. We're continuing K-pop month this week with the good, the bad, and the K-pop. What's up? I'm Jimmy Aquino with the podcast Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture.
And I'm Heidi McDonald. I'm the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com, the website of comics culture news.
Yeah, Ricky?
I'm Ricky Serrano, and I write for The Beat, and I am a lifelong horror fan.
Excellent. And joining us once again is our ringer, our K-pop expert from the very popular YouTube channel, The Asian Theory, is Paul Bacera. Thank you, sir.
Welcome,
Hey, how's
Paul.
it going, guys?
We appreciate you coming back and hanging out with us and teaching us more and more about K-pop. We love it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
We love it.
I'm so sorry I missed last week, you guys,
Right.
which is actually the episode that Jimmy's been hoping for, ever since we started doing Comic Beat Insider.
We might just have to do it again with you. So
yeah.
Hey, dude,
Paul and I will gladly talk about Blackpink.
Gladly talk about Blackpink again.
That's right. All night long. Like, we could have kept going. We're like, well, we got to run. We got things to do.
You have a life outside of Blackpink?
Barely. I mean,
when did that
happen?
I know, right?
Slow your roll.
I know. I mean, I was just watching Rose singing some acapella stuff with her guitar, and I was just like, Rose. That was last week, guys. Blackpink was last week. They'll be involved this week too, a little bit. But this week, as I said, we're gonna cover the good, the bad, and the K-pop, the ins and outs of what it's like in the, as they call, becoming a K-pop idol, becoming one, being one, existing as one, what happens after you're one. We're going to discuss all of that, both the good and the bad, that has been going through what the research and the stories we've heard through random things. A big thanks and shout out. They don't know that we did this, but big thanks to shout out to former idols like Wayland, Way from Crayon Pop has her channel, Wayland, and Subini, Christine Park, who was formerly a Blady. And some others that they have a lot of like YouTube videos of like, when I was an idol, here's what happened, So we checked out a lot of those, plus just random info we looked up too. So
as usual, I am not as immersed now. Ricky, well, okay, I'm not. Let me back up. So I'm not as immersed. I'm just going to ask a lot of questions.
That's fine.
But my first question though is, Ricky, what dragged you into this? How did Jimmy enlist you in this army? In his top army?
Actually, I
funny you say army.
Writing, yeah,
yes, yeah.
I started writing Jimmy about it because I heard Butter, that song, and I heard it once, and it was like a virus, and I couldn't shake it off.
That song is smooth.
Yeah, it's smooth.
And I said, how is it that this is so addictive? Let me hear other stuff to see if it's as addictive. And I found a lot of stuff that is really very...
I sent him a 20-page email with like 4,000 links.
And I saw all of them. And like, I think like I'm seeing in 4D now. Like there's so many different aspects of stuff that I never thought about. But as I'm a history buff as well, so I always like studying the background of all of these things. And it's a very interesting phenomenon that puts to shame almost everything we've had here in the United States.
Fair enough.
That itself is interesting.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly a lot to learn. So interesting. I guess I'm not a lot for the music. And I mean, I do agree. Butter. I mean, you're just from Butter. I mean, I'm from Dynamite. So
there you go.
We're still just recent and inductees.
It's never too late to K-pop, right, Paul?
That's
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I have my first other question. So you say former idol. So being an idol is an actual state, right?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, like,
it's definitely got a shelf life.
Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, so what happened when you're a former idol? Do you just, return to private life, or
We'll get into that for sure.
Do whatever you want. You get on with your normal life.
Yeah, depends on your success. Like if you're successful, you can go off to a solo career. You can go into TV. A lot of them go into acting, as you've heard over the year. I've cast many of my recastings who are now, more known for acting than they are for their singing life. Some go back into just regular life and fall into society again, and some maybe become MCs on a show, or or judges on a show, or a lot of them have lately started YouTube channels, as we see. So It's lots to do for sure, but definitely a lot of them are in and out in a minute, and some last a lot longer. So yeah.
Or they get haunted by past controversies as well, which
Yes,
is
we'll get into
part
that
of
for
what
sure,
we'll talk about here.
Yeah, for sure. So how do
Turn
you
to
become an
Chris.
idol? Yeah. How do you become an idol then? That's the thing. People don't, there's so many ways to become an idol. There's auditions, there's scouting, there's other things. Paul, what are some of the ways, like some of the people become idols?
Well, the basic and pretty much how they do it 99% of the time is you audition to be a trainee for a company, and then the company trains you for X amount of years. It could be anywhere as short of, a couple months to 10 years even.
Like Geo from Twice, 10 years.
Yes. Geo from Twice was 10 years. I believe G-Dragon from Big Bang was either 11 or 12
I think it was
years.
11.
So
and like started at he started like 11 years old, 12, 13, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was really young.
And as a trainee, you learn your basic K-pop idol skills. You learn to sing, you learn to dance, you also learn to act, because there's definitely going to be a lot of acting. And yeah, they basically just get you ready to become an idol.
Yeah.
But there's lots of other ways to become a K-pop idol as well.
Yeah, I think I liken it to the old, Ricky and I were talking about this last night at dinner. I liken it to the old Hollywood studio system. Here, like in America, back in the early days of Hollywood, the studio, if they signed you, they owned you. You were only allowed to be in those movies. That studio, you couldn't do another movie with another studio. Let's say like a plan was, or a contract was worked out. You took classes there. You took training. Women especially took etiquette classes and how to be a proper lady. They acting and singing and dancing and in media. And that's what K-pop idols get, media training. Some of them take English class because it's becoming global now, or Japanese because the Japanese market is really big too. So it's similar, I feel.
But it also reminds me a little bit of the Peking Opera School, which we talked about in our martial
Kung Fu
arts
school, for sure.
But it is a little. It
is an opera, yeah.
It is like the training, because you do, or wresling school. I mean,
that Peking Opera school though can be brutal.
Well, that's brutal. I mean, I don't think they make the idols sleep in beds, urine-soaked beds, or
well, you'd be surprised. There's some stories of dorm life for sure.
Oh wow, okay. But I mean, it does sound like it's this specialized school, like wrestling school or kung fu school, where being an idol is physical, it's acting. I mean, there's a lot to learn, and like you say that, but as you say, also mixed with the old Hollywood star system. So
I kind of compared it when I was talking to Jeannie yesterday. I kind of compared it to the old wrestling territories. You mentioned the schools. I went with, like, if you went to the Memphis territory, you would get more rock and roll type wrestling infused with everything. And then if you went to the Caribbean, you had this other more bloody type of wrestling, but each one had their own culture and audience. And when I was starting to get into this very complicated part with the companies and the kind of studios that train and basically look for all this talent, I was basically imagining K-pop idols as Korean versions of Ric Flair and
wow.
And that's how I managed to get it all to make sense in my head.
Who's the Korean John Cena?
Yeah. It's got the RM, right?
This is a whole nother video, just with lots of screen sharing.
Well, besides auditioning, which is the main way, there's also scouting. Now, this, just like here in America, they scout young, like, basketball players at age like 8. They watch them on the courts, in the popular courts in neighborhoods, and they can be scouted that young. Same thing happens with K-pop idols in America, worldwide. There's several Korean Americans that were scouted really young, like the Young Sisters, who ended up being in Girls' Generation, the other one in FX. Tiffany, who is also in Girls' Generation, was scouted over here. I believe Amber was as well in America, but also like Sana from Twice. She was 12, 13, maybe a little older, but walking down the street and I'm with SM or with JYP, and they're like, and you're always like, yeah, sure you are, whatever. And then they look it up, like, okay, you are. And that's how sometimes easy it can be. They still have to go through, like, after they get scouted, they have to sort of audition, but it's like, yeah, it can be easy as being like just picked out of a crowd. If they think like you're gonna be beautiful, you got some talent, or they see you in a dance show, or they see you in whatever. And so it's similar to ways that happen here too.
I think one of the funniest examples is I believe it was Jim from BTS. He was walking down the streets, just like you said, and like SM came up to him and they're like, hey, you're really handsome, you should come audition to be in SM. And he's like, yeah, right, you guys are just trying to scam me. And he like blows them off. Yeah. And then he later finds out that it actually was SM.
Yeah.
But then a couple years down the road, same thing happened. But then it was Big Hit that approached him. He's like, hey, you're really handsome, you should go audition for Big Hit. And then this time he believed them. And then that's how we came with Jin with BTS. And do you know Ryujin from ITZY?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was actually how she got scouted was she was actually a really big GOT7 fan, and she went to a GOT7 meet and greet, and then the JYP scouts were there at the meet and greet, and they're like, hey, you're really pretty, you should audition for JYP. And then
so it pays to be pretty, people. Take it.
That's how she got picked up, and now she's in the same company as her bias group, which is like every K-pop fan's dream.
And so ITZY's a big success too. They've only been around a couple of years, but they're already a big young group. Yeah.
So that's like the first step, like the looks, and then talent gets developed as it moves forward.
I think it can go back and forth. Like for scouting, I think looks is first, but auditions is definitely talent. I feel mixed with everything, because you get the famous stories like Rose auditioning in Australia where she lived. Rose at Blackpink, of course, and she was the only one picked out of, what was it, 500 something like that, Paul, where that showed up.
I don't remember the exact number. Probably either more. A couple hundred to like low thousand.
Yeah, I believe like she's the only one, because she was so good. She just played her guitar and sang, and they were like, you have such a unique voice.
Same thing happened with Lisa. Like same exact same exact thing. She was at it was like a YG audition in
Thailand.
In Thailand?
Yeah, that's where she's from, yeah.
And she was the only one that got picked out of I believe like 1,000, 2,000 people.
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing. Like you could see that, and like you also see like early on, certain you get a lot of these groups, and you get here in America with like actors and singers and dancers, and we see things like American Idol, where people who for their whole life thought they could sing because their parents lied to them, and they get up there and they're like, oh no, you're horrible. But here with it could certainly happen with K-pop, where they're like, oh, they're beautiful, oh god, they can't sing, we got to figure something out to do with them. But
maybe then they rapper.
But then they train them, and sometimes they come out.
That's what the visual position is for.
Yeah. There's a literal position. There's different positions in K-pop, and Paul probably definitely knows it better than I do, where you get like main vocalist, lead vocalist. What's the difference? And then you get like the main dancer, backup dancer, or this, and then you have someone who's actually called the visual, who is the most beautiful person on the team. Like consider like the face of the team, and you're like Jisoo is the visual for Blackpink. And I think is it Chewie for Twice and like that, and Irene for Red Velvet, and and things like that, and like I guess Jin would be for BTS or something like that, but it's like it's or literally
like Justin Timberlake for NSYNC.
Exactly. Justin Timberlake probably would have been the visual.
But that's like, if you want to, whenever I talk to someone about this and they stop looking at me like a crazy person, I say, well, it's interesting because NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, for example, which we're going to compare them to, and a lot of people compare them to a lot, they weren't necessarily put together and built up with the same intensity that K-pop groups are put together with, and the amount and the investment that they put into the talent as bands over here in America. Or am I wrong? Was NSYNC?
No, I think you're right. I think there was definitely some. Well, as we found out later, what's his name, the manager of like NSYNC and all those other groups, was not the best guy, and manipulated, used them, and stole from them, all this other stuff. But again, that happens in K-pop too. We see the smaller companies, taking advantage of these young kids, their parents and their money, and scamming them out of it, not getting paid ever, things like that, mistreatment, things like that. But
well, I mean, is there? I mean, these stories of somebody coming up to a kid on the street and saying, "You're really handsome, you're really pretty." I mean, this sounds like literal grooming.
Super shady, yeah, exactly.
I mean, there must be horror stories though about fakes, So,
oh yeah, I'm sure there are. I'm sure it's probably happened over here too.
Yeah, and as far as the auditions and everything go, I mean, obviously we have American Idol, which peaked a while ago, but people do love competition shows. I mean, those have been since the dawn of television. Ted Mack's Amateur Hour. On there's
Star
always
Search.
Star
Love me some Star
Search.
Search when I was a kid.
Yes,
That's before Paul's time, but yeah.
Right. There's always been a talent search.
Well, it's funny you say that, as
yeah.
Paul brought up before. Last week we were talking about talent shows, and that's a big process too, where they have these talent competitions. Some are smaller than others. Some are company led. Like that's how Twice was formed, through their talent show 16. He picked like 16 of his trainees and had them compete against each other to form the 9-member group. Originally was supposed to be 70, added to at the last minute. That sucker. And then like they have all these different ones. Some come together, some don't come together. And then you get big ones when they started with the Produce series. It was Produce 101 first, Paul,
Yep.
I believe.
Produce 101 was the first produce series.
Yeah, and it brought how many idols? Hundreds from all different companies.
So it was 101 idols. Which,
there you go. Makes sense.
Which is why it's Produce 101. Yeah. So it was 101 idols, and they all battled together in order to be selected as one of the top 11.
Whoa.
Sure.
So this was like Secret Wars.
Yeah, for comic fans, yeah. But it was from it was from all different companies though. So
it's like Secret Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
where the MCU
together.
is heading.
Yeah. So they were brought together to form a group that they called, because Producer One called IOI, and it was this people from very different companies, but all the companies worked out. Okay, we'll do a contract for that group. It was a year, I believe. For IOI, was that right, Paul?
IOI was a year.
Yeah, so they out the gate wildly popular, like took over the charts, were amazing, and did really well. But then after a year, they had to break up because it was part of the contract.
It was in their contract.
Yeah, and they went separate ways back to their companies. Some have been with other groups. Some of like Somi went solo, which you all saw coming anyway. And but yeah, it's so
it was like the Highwaymen.
The Highwaymen. Why don't I remember what this
Highwaymen.
is?
It was like I might have forgot. It was the group that was like Bob Dylan and Van Morrison.
Oh, right. Was it? Are they called the High? I thought it was I thought they were called. Was there another one with like
the Traveling Wilburys. There was another one that was the Highwaymen. Anyway, I don't even know my dad rock. So
that's all right. My dad rock. My
granddad rock.
Yeah.
But one of the questions I had was, I'm still a little unclear as to like the chicken or the egg kind of thing with the companies and the bands. So we know that the companies put these bands together, but did the company see an opportunity with this and then seize it, or were they like, we have to create a K-pop genre universe type of thing, and we have to get on top of this, and we need people to do this?
Well, I think, and again, I think we maybe talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago with the 101 podcast we did, where the training system that exists today is credited to Lee Soo-min, who's the head of SM Entertainment, one of the big three or now big four companies. And he had been to America, and was fascinated by, all sorts of American pop music. And I read somewhere it was based off of a Japanese system, but again, I see it as the old Hollywood system. But he's credited with creating the system of training and having them live where the company controls every aspect of your life, everything. I mean, like you can't have a phone. Some companies you can't date, you can't this and that. You get you're restricted to what you eat and where you live, what you do. You're put together in a dorm. So he's started that system. And I don't know the full answers. Like I know obviously they're trained and they sort of get these monthly sometimes weekly, maybe both evaluations. And then they start seeing like you would casting and acting. Like that's why when I used to be an actor, you'd go in. I know Paul, you're still an actor, and like I get called in for, especially in musical theater, and you might read with somebody. And it's like in acting, it's a chemistry read, like how do they work together? Maybe I don't work so well with Ricky, but then Ricky and Paul really have great chemistry. So I'm out, so even though they really wanted me, but they didn't cast me, they felt they were better together. And so I think maybe that's what happens probably with K-pop is like, they just throw against the wall. You see people they might work together.
So let's talk about though this, like you say, they get them together and in these schools, and then they are like living in a dorm together, and so that's where this Mickey Mouse Club stuff goes on, right? So it sounds. How long do they live under this system?
Till they get successful. Yeah. I mean, so they're rich enough,
Depends.
successful to get their own apartment and are allowed to move out into their own apartment, I think. Yeah, you see
Yeah.
some really successful groups still living together.
Wow.
Like
It's like Scooby-Doo.
kind of like Brave
All
Girls
the-
is a really old group. You know, they
Ah,
debuted, what is it, 10 years ago?
2011. The current
10,
lineup
10
has been
years
together
ago,
since
and
2014, I think. Yeah, 2016.
they're still living in a dorms together, but now
Yeah.
that they're more successful, they might actually
I
get
think
separate
they
apartments.
talked about, yeah, they actually did just get new apartments.
They have
The old ones-
vacation homes.
Yeah, yeah.
Where they go.
Vacation homes.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like you see, and I'm going to share this real quick. Share screen. Let me go. Hold on a second. This is the original dorm of BTS. All bunk beds, all in the same room. That's the
Oh,
original dorm of BTS
it
when they started
looks
out.
like it's for young children.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Well, they were, to be fair, they were probably 18 at the time. Who knows? Something like that.
Doesn't look like
Yeah,
an
but still,
18-year-old
No,
boy's
I know what you're saying.
room.
I see what you're saying, but yeah, that's the original, and that's
Yeah.
how cramped it could be. And
Because
often a manager will live with them as well, you know. So yeah.
Whoa.
yeah, because K-pop groups are expensive. A lot of times when companies debut a K-pop group,
Mhm.
they're taking a financial risk,
Mhm.
and until these groups are popular, a lot of these companies are operating in the negative, and so
Yeah.
they put them in dorms. They put like 5 people to a room, 6 people to a room,
Yeah.
and are super cheap in the beginning. And until a K-pop group is successful, that's they're gonna
Yeah.
be living in that dorm until then.
That's why you see a lot
Yeah,
of successful ones are from rich families because the families can afford to
Mhm.
stay in those dorms. Because then you
Yeah.
hear other stories like Wei, whose videos I sent to Waylon, she was in Crayon Pop. She said when they started, they had to take bank loans out until they made a profit because
Wow.
the company's putting money into you. So you have to pay that back. Like,
Mhm.
so like they're not just spending money to see if it works. You have to pay that back. So once they finally started getting some success and they eventually had a big hit, the jumping song, you know, and they started getting like, and that's her saying in one of her videos was like, yeah, my first paycheck went to pay off my bank loans.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like, yeah, because they had bank loans just to eat, just
Mhm.
to get the, live in little things. And they ate very cheaply. And they went to the convenience stores constantly to get food. And plus they're on diets. They get weighed all the time, men and
Yeah.
women, but
Mm.
especially the women. It's because it's still a very patriarchal society over there. But yeah, it's a giant risk for the idols, the families, like this. The companies. It's a
Mm.
big risk, and as you see, not many succeed. So out
Mm.
of the number out of the probably thousands that audition or even become trainees, and if not debuting, many don't succeed, and they might be in the system for a long time.
That's where I saw a lot of the horror stories that come out
Yeah.
of the industry, like because then it also becomes kind of like a power relationship, right? Where
Hmm.
you want to succeed, but you know that in order to succeed, you have to keep this group of people that are paying for your life
Hmm.
completely. And that's when I started coming up with cases in which some groups were complaining about physical abuse from their trainer,
Yeah. Managers. Yeah.
performing through injuries.
Hmm. Still happens.
Yeah. And then when I kind
But
of
that's
got
kind of
to,
common, not just in K-pop. I mean, that happens over here. You see all the time, like American.
oh
I
yeah,
got
yeah,
Dave Grohl played with a broken foot on, the Foo
yeah.
Fighters concert that one time. So it's like everyone does. I think everyone does,
Yeah.
especially when you're younger. You
But
want to.
Dave Grohl did it by choice.
That's true. It's true. Fair enough. Fair enough. No, you're right.
That's
You're
a
right.
different one.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, you're right. Where they're like, you have to perform or you're out.
I mean, it does sound like a system that is ripe with a potential for abuse, I mean,
Yeah.
and
there definitely has been some.
yeah, and anytime you have a power imbalance, like it
Mhm.
sounds like, and obviously there's a lot of money at stake and huge amounts of money at stake, so that tends to make people a little more ruthless, and
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a documentary. I don't know if you've seen this one about the Nine Muses that was in around 2010, 2011. Sarah Ryu, she has a YouTube channel called YouTube. And she was a member of the original leader of Nine Muses, and it was these 9 beautiful women put together. And there's a BBC documentary from 2012 about it, and it follows them around. And the company that they're with was rumored that the guy that led it was part of a crime family or crime syndicate like that helped run this. So And there's a scene where he slaps, not like really hard, but slaps her in the face, in the documentary. You see them, you're like, oh my God. And the way some of them are treated is like, they're not, they're a commodity, they're an asset or a potential asset. They're not people. And that's unfortunate. I think it's definitely gotten a lot better because there's more focus and there's more social media. There's more former idols coming out like this. Like, did you read the story, Paul? Was it recently where the young boy band that were physically beaten supposedly? Oh God, I can't remember the name. They were
Haven't.
really young too. Yeah, this was pretty like a couple years ago. It was this young boy band, and they've come out and lived with a lawsuit against their former company that like the manager would literally physically beat some of them, like would lock them in a room and like with like it was just like, oh my God, these are like 16, 15-year-olds, and they're like doing this, and it's like that was pretty recent. But I think the bigger companies certainly know that they have eyes on them now. So not that any of the bigger companies, did. There certainly probably was some here and there, but I think it's easier to get away with when you're a smaller company to like be the all powerful, But when you're the big ones, you got a lot of people watching you. So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. But oh, go ahead, Jimmy. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I just wanted to mention like about the whole gathering trainees and scouting and auditions, things like that, as a former actor and seeing them go in these massive auditions myself, and seeing you're in a sea of people trying to stand out, you definitely can see there's certainly many talented people that did not make it in K-pop or even in just any sort of industry. You can see many potential of many people. I'm going to share this really quickly. This is early Blackpink when they were trainees. Just a quick little dance thing. I'll play a little bit. Like you can see the talent, like especially Lisa and Jenny are natural, and but Rose wasn't, but she's great. She's like you see the talent shine through, and that reminds me of a story when I remember watching Graham Norton show one time, and Katie Lang, famous American singer, and Jennifer Hudson, of course, very famous singer actress, were on. And Graham doesn't normally do this, but he sort of playfully said to Katie, "Hey, you once said you didn't like American Idol and that whole system," with Jennifer Hudson sitting right next to her, who of course famously came up through American Idol. And Katie said a really great thing. No, Katie said, like, she goes, you know what? She would have found her way up. Look at her talent. And I believe that in a lot of things.
But I just want to point out, Jennifer Hudson finished 8th on American Idol. You know, she was not the final. I mean, she was voted out. That's pretty early, actually.
Yeah.
And
still found her way up.
Yeah. I mean, I actually watched American Idol religiously for a very short while, but after its peak, I never saw any of the, Justin and
Kelly Clarkson for sure.
Kelly. Well, I'd say like the first 5 years had some really huge stars, and there's been a couple successful ones. Like in the era I watched it, like Philip Phillips, like he's pretty successful, I'd say.
Yeah.
And
that is
yeah, he said, "Oh, I'm going to see you home." He did that home song that they played constantly during the Olympics, like in 2012 or something.
Don't remember.
But
yeah. I probably heard it,
like you and you
it didn't last in my head.
Right.
Not in
anyway, the point is, I think we all think that we could be talent scouts, right? And so that's why we love to watch American Idol, especially like the open auditions ones, because you see someone and like you do see people who really can sing and come up there, and then you become your favorite, and obviously all that. But and then sometimes they come out and they do something great, and then Simon and Ruben all hate it, and you're like, well, didn't they see that? But I'll say I'll give Simon Cowell. He does know a lot more about putting together.
Oh, certainly.
I do. I mean, he's put together a lot of successful ones.
Yeah, I've often agreed with him, especially because I watch some of the British X Factors.
And I mean, because
he kind of knows what he's talking about.
Because there's a lot of talented people, but there is that absolute star quality.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you do see it. On America's Got Talent or whatever, and it's very exciting when you do. I mean, even what's the most famous one there? Susan. What's her name? Susan.
No.
I don't really watch America's Got Talent.
No. It was on Britain's Got Talent, and she was.
Susan Boyle. Yeah.
Susan Boyle, who came out, and that was it. She, even though she was a heavy-set middle-aged woman, she did have star quality.
Yeah,
So,
she has a great voice, not the best voice in the world, but she's got a great voice.
yeah.
But there is something about like star quality. People say that you see that with different actors, like Tom Cruise. He's a good actor.
Mhm.
He's not a great actor, but there's something about him you want to watch on screen.
Mhm.
He's got great screen presence, and I think that shows early on. Again, we're gonna constantly go back to Blackpink, as Blackpink. But like you see, Jenny was featured early on in videos and other things with the company before she was even in Blackpink. She was just a trainee because they saw something in her. And you watch some of Jenny's old audition videos, she has something. You're like, she's the face of Chanel in Korea right now. I mean, besides being part of Blackpink, she's a global star. People know who she is, whether you're a Blackpink fan or not. People are like, I've seen her in something. I know her, I know that face. So they're definitely people that have star quality, and it doesn't mean they have the best voice or the best dancer, but there's something about them you want to watch. And that's pretty prevalent in K-pop. Wouldn't you say, Paul? I'd say,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel
Yeah.
like that's one of the main determining factors for getting an idol.
Yeah.
I feel like even more over dancing and singing skills, like they have that star potential. Because there's tons of people that can sing, there's tons of people that can dance, but what's going to separate this person from everyone else? What's going to, what's special about this person?
Yeah, that's what's rare, I think, in K-pop. That you're going to find a group that's just, they're all amazing singers, except for like Mamamoo. They all can, like Mamamoo is the best vocalist in K-pop right now and have been for years. They can all actually sing. Even the rapper can sing. But she was told, and we did this about Image later, about changing how you're supposed to be. She started out as a vocalist because she can sing. But the company said, you need to be a rapper or you're not going to debut, basically. And so she had to kind of learn how to rap to be part of this group. And she mostly raps in the group, but she vocalizes and harmonizes a lot of the songs. She's just not as featured because the other three are such amazing singers. And like Solar, the main vocalist, and Hawassa has such a unique sound of her voice, and Ween, and so you don't see that like you see in Red Velvet. Wendy's incredible vocalist, and the other ones can sing. I always liken it to things like, to Heidi's analogy, the Mickey Mouse Club. You got Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera came out. Britney can sing. She's not a great singer, but she can sing. But she's got star quality, and she's a great dancer. Christina can sing. It's like, so like that Red Velvet, you got like different members who are good at what they do. Irene's a visual. She can sing and rap. She can dance. She's not the best singer. Wendy is an amazing singer. So you definitely get balances like that. Same thing with Twice. Jiho's a great singer. Nayeon's a great singer. The other ones can sing.
So I have a question.
But they're not these amazing. Yeah.
Is there can anyone be an idol who dances as badly as Bing Crosby did in White Christmas?
I mean, that'd be tough because choreography is a big part of K-pop life. Let me tell you what. I don't know. Paul, can you think of anybody?
Yeah, because we're going to take a break from doing New Scoop. We're going to take a break from doing Comic Beat Insider for part of the summer because everybody is actually traveling around and doing things like me. I'm in. So this is kind of this isn't the last show before our break, but I'm doing all the callbacks. Have you noticed?
Yes, I have.
I'm
very nice.
Bringing all the great.
You've covered a lot over the past year, Paul.
Great classics of Comic Beat Insider, of which White Christmas was absolutely one. So anyway,
I can't think of any of at least not the third or fourth generation
that
didn't have dance.
The first thing that comes to my mind is Eyes One. So Eyes One is a group that came out of Produce 48. And a lot of the members, especially the Japanese members, weren't really trained to be dancers. They came from a J-pop system. So for some background, Eyes One is a group that's has 9 Korean members and 3 Japanese members. And the 3 Japanese members come from J-pop, like they come from Japan, and they were J-pop idols in Japan. And in Japan, they don't really focus a whole lot on dancing and like strict choreography. Like they have dance moves and they do stuff, but it's nothing like K-pop dancing. And
K-pop choreo is another level, man.
Yeah, a lot of the trainees weren't really used to like Korean style of choreography. So especially Sakura wasn't a super strong dancer when she started in Eyes One. Obviously, after 2.5 years,
she's like the most popular one. Yeah.
She's a lot better dancer after 2.5 years. But at the beginning of Eyes One, she was yeah, she was not a great dancer.
Yeah, fair. That's fair to say for sure.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, everyone can learn, I guess, to an extent. So
Yeah.
it is possible. You don't have to be an amazing dancer. Like I said earlier, like that star quality, like the visuals and your star quality, I feel like are your two biggest qualifiers to become an idol.
Yeah.
Everything else can be learned.
Yeah, true. And like,
Given
I
that they
think with Mamamoo is a good point because they used to sort of get crap for their lack of choreography because they had sort of simple choreography because they're singers. But like Ween's a really good dancer, and actually Solar is really good too. Actually, they all can dance pretty well. But like it wasn't until Hip came out, their biggest hit ever, but it was again, they always change genres. Mamamoo, they go from jazz to like soul to pop to hip hop to whatever. And Hip was this new one from a couple of years ago that was their biggest hit and had probably the most choreography they ever did, or at least the hardest choreography they ever did. And it was a big hit. And then they started, I feel like they've started dancing more, having more moves in their videos now because of it. But yeah, I wouldn't mind. It's such a big part of K-pop, the choreo. Like it's incredible. Like the choreographers, freaking kudos to them. My God, like if I would have had that type of choreographer as a young dancer, I don't know if I would have made it. It's like, oh man, I'm all right. Like especially group street dancing, I'm like I'm all right. But I'm like, oh my God, some of the moves. You're like, every word has a movement, and you can't sit still for 1 minute. And it's like you're doing flips and turns. You're like, what?
But I
How
feel
do they do this?
Ricky, you had something to say there.
Oh, no, but thinking about how you become an idol and a star, and the fact that you basically owe your first year checks to the company.
Not more, yeah.
For 7 years.
Yeah, exactly, 7 years, yeah.
So do you get, or do they get to a point where they can get so big and so famous that they can start demanding stuff from their companies? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Of BTS
sure.
can say, I'm going to leave if you don't get me out of this dorm. I would imagine the company would like move heaven and earth to get this guy.
Well, BTS made that company. Like that company was going under at one point, right, Paul? Weren't they like going to go bankrupt at some point?
Oh yeah, they were nobodies before BTS.
Yeah, and BTS made them. They're one of the big players, not just in K-pop. They've changed their company name now. They're exploring all of their avenues. They're huge right now, and it's because of BTS. So BTS
they
can
own
pretty
Justin
much like
Bieber and Selena
Gomez. Yeah, they
Demi Lovato.
They bought out. They like are either partnered or bought out some of the companies, American companies. And it's like, yeah, if BTS wants like, I'd like a shark sandwich with avocado and a side of a baby's tears. They were like coming right up. It's like absolutely, they would get it because they made that. Same with Blackpink, and like we were saying earlier, the more success we get, the more I think a little more freedom you have. But you still see they're still company controlled. They're still like you have to act a certain way.
Well, I mean, what happens? How when are you too old though to be an idol? I mean, like
for females, it's young. It's females have a shelf life. Yeah.
So it's like I mean, like you were saying, like some can go on to a solo career where they can call more of the shots in their lives. I would assume, like as they age out of this system.
Yeah.
So, hopefully if they really have staying power, then they can, I mean, again, I'm just sitting here making all the analogies, look at what's going on with Britney Spears. And, obviously that's just super complicated, but, she's kind of
free Britney.
Yeah. Free Britney. Absolutely. And, they kept her controlled because she was a money-making machine. And she just said, I've had it. I'm 39 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm effing done.
Well, just sales wise, boy groups do better. They just do. And there's your rare case of Blackpink and Twice and whether do really successful, but the boy groups definitely make more money just sales wise. And they also have lasting staying power because again, patriarchal society, men can do longer, and that's worldwide, of course. Some of the women, as I said, go into acting and MCing, and eventually some might have longer solo careers, but it's rare you see that, or they'll come back later on doing stuff, and like you'll see them in variety shows or like that. But yeah, it's definitely it's definitely a lot going on. Like it depends, really. I guess it depends on the person, but yeah.
To that point, I was watching. Sorry, you were gonna say something, Paul?
Go ahead.
I was watching an interview with Amber Liu.
Yeah, Amber from FX. Yeah.
And I think to that point, she said that there are very different expectations fandom wise between boy bands and girl bands. So um, Amber said that boys are asked to amass a fandom, whereas women were asked to cater to a more general audience, to be like basically by everyone. And she talks about at one point being told that her skin was too dark and that she had to brighten it because that would get a much wider audience. Whereas if you kind of, and really my point of reference is BTS because I'm still at the surface level, but you do see that BTS has almost like a Marvel universe's worth of fandom. Whereas I feel like the other girl bands tend to be a little bit more like, this is the entire amalgam of girl bands and you can listen to all of them. And it's okay if you don't have socks, underwear, pants, shirts, book bag with their names on it.
Yeah. And then for some part, I think like you get groups like Blackpink who are definitely global. And other groups that have like tried to go global, but they definitely have fandom worldwide, but they're not nowhere near as big as Blackpink. It's certainly not BTS. So I definitely see the point Amber makes, and she was obviously in one of the biggest groups of the second generation FX for quite a while.
So, go on, Paul.
Oh no, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, I also, so this is a, maybe it's actually not that dark, but what about, I mean, you talked about the skin lightening. I mean, we do
image
know,
is big,
but Korea is also like the global center for plastic surgery.
Yeah,
you know,
it is.
it's the best.
I think it's the biggest
and the cheapest.
biggest country in the world.
In fact, me and my girlfriends were all talking about going there. What we're getting done
to get some stuff done.
Get some stuff done, yeah.
Good for you, right on.
Because they're the best. No, I'm not really gonna go. I'm not.
I might do it. Whatever.
Yeah, let's all go. We're gonna have a plastic surgery vacation to Korea. But I mean, is it common for idols? I mean, does that come sometimes with the? Because I my understanding is that it is very, very accepted.
Yeah.
When you're young to go get something fixed or get a look that you want to have or something. It's very, very prevalent. But I mean, is like something, is this part of the package or?
What do you mean part of the package?
I mean, it's like if you go in, if you're scouted, would it be like, oh, we're just going to fix your eyes or fix your nose or something?
I think they might suggest it maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think, I'm not exactly sure about like the specifics, but like 100%, most idols will get surgery. Probably, I don't know, a good 90% of all idols. I don't, probably even higher than that.
Yeah.
I feel like at least every idol will at least get something done, even if it's like something super small, like eyelids or something on your nose. But
double eyelid surgery is really popular.
I feel like it's very, very rare to have an idol that hasn't done plastic surgery, at least something small.
Yeah.
I mean, even in just normal Korean society, even as not an idol, it's socially acceptable to get like your eyelids done on like your 18th birthday or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, if you just type into YouTube, just like K-pop idol plastic surgery, a million videos will pop up of like, look at her before, then here's Shazam, look at him before, look at him now, so yeah.
But is it socially acceptable, or is it because that's what's expected of them if they want to make it to the point where they do? Because it's not only something that I heard Amber Liu say. I saw a few other videos where the main narrative was like, maybe not everyone is going to ask this of us, but we are doing it because we know that our eyelids have to be this way, our cheeks have to be up here.
They see the popular group, so they're like, this is what I should look like.
Exactly.
I think so, yeah.
So, because there is a lot of, especially with, I saw a video from Jennie from Blackpink, where she's apparently, at least the person who made the video, said that she was maybe the most vilified member of the group. And
Jennie?
She was for a while, yeah.
Yeah.
She I feel like she was for a while where people
what'd she do?
The more popular the more popular you are, the more people come after you. So
just when you're popular, you have haters.
Yeah. I think the video said that a lot of people latched on to that she was entitled and that she maybe got too much attention, maybe because of money or something else, or something. She would have shows where she would forget a lyric or two and she would get a pass, whereas that would never fly in another group. But I do that's kind of something that I saw pop up very quickly in a lot of videos, especially in terms of how Korea is dealing with its own feminist movement right now, and how this culture of let's get all of these types of beauty things done on your bodies, that it might not be as not necessarily as a rite of passage, so to say, or like a treat you pay for yourself, and more like preparing to meet that standard of beauty.
Yeah,
that
I think
K-pop
that's it.
definitely has at its forefront.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, they watch the videos, they grow up loving these bands. They're like, I need to look like that, so they know what they want going in, and you see, I've seen stories where like parents will gift their kids plastic surgery at graduation.
Well, it's also like, just to bring the Mickey Mouse Club analogy to it, Christina Aguilera, she went through a period where she put on some weight, and the haters came for her.
She looked amazing.
And she looked amazing.
Yeah.
She's still beautiful, but the haters came right out for it. So I mean, I just this none of this sounds very healthy, like for human beings. And I think on your topic list, Jimmy did send out a topic list, and one of them was mental health, about how they're starting to be a little bit more finally just
aware
even discuss it. And I mean, obviously this happened with the tennis, it's happening in the tennis world now. And and also, of course, women are completely scrutinized in a way that men never are, or very rarely. But there's just so much. I mean, the blowback against Naomi Osaka and about dropping out, because do you think you could handle this? Yeah, so what? She's a great tennis player, but you want to have your every motion and analyzed and be quizzed, and it's not easy.
Yeah, well, so, on that note, it's really, you see companies finally starting, and it took a few like K-pop idols taking their own life for them to really stand up, and like two big profile names right in a row, Sully and Guara, were really good friends, and with 6 months apart from each other, took their own life. And it's really sad.
And
really,
just
like,
to give us,
and they come off for like, they blamed a lot of on cyberbullying, things like that, and the way anti-fans, as they call it, I've never seen the anti-fan movement so big in anything besides K-pop. There's total fan clubs created to hate a group or a person. I don't understand that. It drives me crazy. But yeah, because of that, companies have finally started taking notice, and you see like JYP, one of the biggest girl groups in K-pop. You finally saw a couple years ago, Mina took time away from mental health, and they let her. Like, that wouldn't have happened years ago. They would have been like, well, too bad, you got to just, maybe not that verbatim, but like, hey, you got to stick with it, figure it out. But now, because of what's happening, they're starting to let in, there's other members you see are taking time away, and I think that's so important. And,
also from Luna also took like a 1.5 year hiatus.
Yeah.
For the same reason, for
sure.
mental health reasons.
Yeah, it's taxing. I mean, you're 19, 20 years old, and you're suddenly thrust into this world that you want to be in, but you didn't understand everything about it until you got into it. And there's some great things about it. You're doing what you love. You're surrounded by professionals in every field. I'm learning so much from these people, be it hair, makeup, to directors, to writers, to fellow performers, to all this other stuff. But then come the downfalls too, where it's like, this is a lot of pressure, and schedules are crazy. Schedules are nuts. We're talking about Twice. Paul and I talked about this recently. Like, give them some freaking time off. My God, they're one of the most popular groups in the world in K-pop, and they're never not working. They release it seems like a few mini albums a year almost. And when they're not doing the albums, they're doing, okay, now we're going to do the Japanese version. And no, now we're going to do a reality show. And now we're going to do another reality show, but within house, where they shoot their own now we're going to be in these shows. And Paul made a good point about it. He said something about like, oh, well, especially shelf life for female groups is shorter, so they want to get as much out of them as they can, which I get. But like, that's why you get these I need time off. It's like, give them some time off. They're doing well. It's like, ugh. That's what drives me crazy when I see them. I'm like, my God, it's great to see them, but I see them all the time.
But it does sound like there's a certain fickleness to fandom, obviously. I mean, the shelf life is short just because fans, the tastes change. And, it sounds like, they can do some little thing and then that just turns off the fan base. They make one little misstep and it's sayonara.
Yeah. Well, that's some plot talk. Like, Paul loves, Luna. I love Blackpink, but we also both like Luna and Blackpink. And it's like we can like more than one. But in K-pop, I feel like, man, some of the fans are so strong. They only like that one group, and they'll go against another group if they're competing against them. And I don't understand that. Like, can't we like a bunch of them? Like, I like multiple.
We talked about that in the first episode. And Ricky, I'd love to get your perspective on this too, just in terms of the phenomenon of fandom. And I mean, we're all fans of something, but you were saying, like, when it's the BTS army or when it's an army, like the fandom is so rabid because they feel like they're united in a cause. And
that's interesting.
Oh, go on.
Go ahead. No, I found that interesting in the sense that you kind of compare it to, I feel like, and again, my knowledge is very limited on this, but I feel like the companies and the groups behind these bands kind of also create an expectation that fans then follow. So I got to a little bit more understanding of how idols worked through a book that then turned into an anime that I'm sure you might know, Heidi, called Perfect Blue. It originally was a book by Yoshikazu Takeishi, and I'm not saying that Japan and Korea are the same, but they have kind of like some, as Paul mentioned earlier, similarities between systems that one took from the other and whatnot. And the book it's a horror thriller kind of book, but it looks at a main character that I also wanted to ask you guys if this happened in Korean pop as well, where you're supposed to transition from being an innocent virgin figure of an idol into a more sexier, risque version of yourself, where you're kind of like going through or evolve like Pokemon into a better version or a bigger version of an idol.
Or the Miley Cyrus.
Exactly. But what the book and the anime do like beautifully well in a horrifying way is that it kind of puts the spotlight on the fan. And so we have a murderous fan, very, very angry that his idol is going to start doing more sexy things and not
more sexy time things.
And I
think
that
happens with a lot of fandoms, is like the ownership of it.
But I'm wondering if kind of like the company's created a monster that it's really hard to put back in the box again, because when you have that as a woman, you have to be thin, sexy without revealing too much, using your safety pants so that nothing ever rides up too high. Men have to be muscular, single eternally until something happens. That gets transferred down to fans, because then fans are going to say, okay, then that's how I should see my idols. So would you agree that maybe the companies in creating these idols kind of also created the dark side of K-pop as well?
I would think so, in a sense, because the way that K-pop companies construct their groups, they construct them in a way so that fans will be obsessed over them. Fans will fall in love with them, and part of a thing that companies sell to fans is not only like the idol group, but I guess the fantasy that comes along with an idol group.
The accessibility.
Part of the reason like why K-pop fans are so obsessive over K-pop idols is that whole fantasy aspect of it. You know, they believe that, like, you know, they can become close with their idol. Their idols are accessible to them, and you know, maybe even one day I can marry or date my idol. So whenever, you know, whenever an idol does something to break this fantasy for the fan, you know, the fan gets really mad. The fan gets super pissed off, and they
turn on them.
Yeah, they act pretty crazy sometimes. Have you heard of the story of Josh, Nyan's stalker?
Oh yes, this is actually kind of scary. Yeah, so Nyan is like one of the main vocalists of Twice, a really big girl group, and she's got this German guy Josh that's stalking her, right, Paul? So
yeah, so she has like this crazy stalker that tries to follow her around Korea, and you know, he's super obsessed about her. And he says that if Nyan ever dates anyone else, or if Nyan ever has a boyfriend, that's not me, I'm going to go and murder her. I will straight up kill her, which is pretty psycho, because he seems like the type of person that would actually go through with that. You know, it's not like just a saying like, oh, I'm going to kill him. He looks like the person that would actually do that. And one crazy story is one time Twice was on a flight, and for some way he found out.
Oh my god!
He found out their flight information, and he bought tickets like right behind them.
Oh my god! Oh my
I don't
god!
even know how you even find that out.
Got on the plane,
tickets, seats right behind them.
So
tried to approach them, but luckily the bodyguards were like, "What the fuck?" and like stopped them. Yeah.
So what? I mean, is this ongoing, or what happened to this guy?
Well, as what I understood, he was. At some point, he couldn't travel to Korea for a limited time. They were like, they had a because they have new stalking laws. They have new whatever laws in Korea. So either he was kind of banned, but now I think if that's up, he might be able to come back. But it doesn't stop him from seeing her when they go tour in Japan or go tour because he's anywhere else. He could show up. Yeah, and he's like, I wasn't sure at first. Well, no, he's shown up at places where, like, he showed up at JYP, where her company is. He's like, he got on that flight, which is really scary, got really close to her. He's gone to places where she's been, like on her Instagram, figure out where that was. It makes all these videos of how, if only she would read my letters, she would love me too, things like that. And I couldn't figure out, like, is he just this giant troll? Like, is he really? But it doesn't seem like, it seems like he's real. Like he really thinks that they're going to be together. And it's really frightening. And, you know, she knows about it.
Because he hasn't done anything that's illegal enough or crazy enough, excuse me, or
but they have created, they start
disturbing enough that he.
I said this before, like they call them in Korea, they call them, is it Saisung fans, Paul, is that what they say? The crazy fans, something like that, Saisung or something like that. The over obsessed ones who show up at like your door or whatever like that, and like Saisung, that's it, yeah. And they started creating more law. I think even recently there's a new law they created. They're starting to push back on, and I think SM might be one of the first big companies that's going to follow through and start suing like some fans. Wow. Like, let me just show you. This is from years ago. This is from Paul. You've probably seen this. Now, at the time, Girls' Generation was one of the biggest groups in K-pop. This is like probably 2012, whatever, 20 something like that, or maybe a little bit after. And they were doing a concert at a festival. And just watch the first few seconds what happens. So this is it. Dude rolls on, grabbing her off stage.
Wow! Holy crap!
In the middle of a concert, he walks on stage, grabs Taeyeon. The other girls have no idea. Like Hyun kind of steps aside, like, what's happening? Maybe thought it was a practical joke. Sunny sees, she turns around, starts going after it, and the MC, the other guys on the opposite side of the stage were like, tackle the guy. But like, what did he think he was gonna do?
Well,
like, he's in the middle of a giant crowd.
Grab your own idol. Grab which one you like.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like they're clearly not mentally well. He walks to the stage in front of thousands of people, surrounded by security, and somehow he got on that stage and was able to walk out there and grab her. I read a story years ago, or about what happened years ago. I can't remember the idol. It wasn't anybody super famous, who was basically kidnapped by a guy, taken back. She wakes up in his house, hears him arguing with, like, she figured out was his brother, and the brother was like pissed, like, what did you do? He's like, but we love her. She's great. But yeah, but this is not what you do. So the brother that didn't do it was against it. So she said she somehow had the wherewithal to sort of take control of the situation. She woke up, was like, "Hey guys, what's going on? Oh, where am I? Great. Hey, why don't we go to lunch?" And like sort of took them out to lunch and hung
Oh
out.
my
Then after lunch
God.
was like, "Well, have a great day. I'm gonna go now." And had that wherewithal. Luckily, I mean, it seemed like the guys were gonna like eventually like just had no idea what they're doing anyway, but had the wherewithal to like just okay,
Wow.
I'm gonna take control of the situation. But you see something where they show up at dorms, they show up at where
This
they're
is
gonna
like
be.
the king of
They're overseas at the hotel rooms.
the king of
Yeah,
comedy. I was gonna say
yeah.
she woke up
Yeah.
and they were singing better than ever. But
Well, I mean, David Letterman had that woman that showed up, that stalker for years that showed up at his house several times. And I mean, obviously happens here in America too, but like
oh yeah, well, there was
over
a
there, it's
wrestler.
like it's the accessibility of
There was a female wrestler who had an intruder in her house, and he had been stalking her for a while too.
Yeah.
And like I mean, it's not.
yeah, it's the accessibility.
It's yeah.
It's a lot
And
of what Paul was saying.
Yeah.
The accessibility. They
Yeah.
they are expected to perform so much, not just on stage. They have those live, they call V Live, those live like streams they do with their fans. And so the fans get to know that. They're on variety shows all the time. So you really feel like you know these people.
Yeah.
And they create these images of how they're supposed to act. And like, but even in these V Lives, you might get a little bit more personal. And of course, they're like, "We love you, fans. You're why I exist," and they have to say that. And they probably, I'm sure they believe that to an extent. They don't believe like we're going to be friends and we're going to go out, but they're like, "You're the reason I'm here." And when a fan hears that, they're like, "Oh my God, I helped create you." It's like, and they're like, "We should be together." And you see that, and it's just so scary. And like, just that, you've seen like just at airports when they arrive, how many times like, sometimes they've gotten injured because fans are storming after them. I mean, you see that with Michael Jackson, the Beatles, things like that too. But it's like,
Yeah.
I don't understand what is going through people's heads when you see that. It's like,
Well, I mean,
You had the guy. Yeah.
oh, go on, Ricky.
You had the guy who sent, if I remember correctly, a letter bomb to Bjork. Recorded himself.
Oh my God.
Declaring his
Jeez.
intentions. Committed suicide in the video.
Oh
This
my
was
God.
not as
Holy
this
cow.
was not as severe, but Ricky Martin, the reason why everyone knows Puerto Rico exists.
Yeah. Ricky Martin. Hey, listen.
When he was going to consider coming out as a gay man, the main worry was, what are we going to tell our female fans who all want to go to your concerts to be his girlfriend, And so Ricky Martin had to really shift a lot of his pieces around, because he was Puerto Rico's most desirable bachelor, and all of a sudden the
He was
narrative
living La
had
Vida
to
Loca.
change.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Or not really a surprise.
Not really, yeah. Everyone knew, but the fact that no one had said it.
Yeah. Well, of
was-
course, the most famous and horrifying is, I mean, one of the most horrifying is Selena. The original Selena,
Absolutely.
who was a very famous Mexican pop star, and she was murdered by the president of her fan club.
Yep.
Who was female, by the way. So it's not just men who go loco. It's both sexes, and both can be, or
probably more men, but yes, definitely both
probably
sexes,
more men. But I mean, the murder of Selena
absolutely.
is definitely.
Oh, that's very, very close to me, because as you know, I did the musical Selena based on her life with my last national tour, and we met the family. We went to her gravesite, went to her recording studio.
Oh wow!
We met all, and I positively fell in love with her, and just learned more and more about her, and it moves me still to this day to tears thinking about it. And try not to right now, but it's like it's so,
because she was so young too,
she
right?
was so young, and so like it's like it's just like the people, it's this ownership people feel over other people.
And it was
you see someone, you get excited, and you're like, oh no, they're mine.
Well,
that's mine.
I think it was with the president of the fan club. It was this jealous, possessive love that she had.
She didn't want anyone else. Yeah,
that she didn't want anyone else to have. And like I said, we're all fans of things, and I do. There's so many different kinds of fandom now, and listen, I'm old enough that we go back and forth on all these things. And even when I was at Disney Adventures, we got all these fan letters, and some of them were for kids, some of them were for grownups, and there were some corkers, let me put it that way. And toxic fandom and is a thing. It's just a thing. And obviously it's kind of come around now that the way that performers are or even there's so much talk about comics pros who treat their fans badly. And but I think on Twitter everybody behaves badly. Nobody is nobody's a saint on Twitter anymore. But I just obviously being wanting to touch this, to wanting to be part of it, feeling like you're part of something that's glamorous and special and beautiful is something that it gives people's lives something that's very important to them, but it just has to be like
we see all the time.
It has to be given perspective, in people's lives. I mean, I just think people can, like, fandom can become so obsessive, and I just think we have all the tools for it now to really, between TikTok and all the social media that we have, obviously K-pop's huge on TikTok, but we have a lot of tools that are enabling people to kind of to go down a tunnel, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think so. And like we were talking about with like just the accessibility, where you'll see K-pop idols on these variety shows reading out these letters from their fans, or even their V lives, like we're saying, like, you changed my life. I exist because of you. I was gonna take my life, but your music saved me. Things like that. And it's like, wow. Like, I almost feel like they wish they wouldn't read those type of letters out, because then it feels like that person's like, oh my God, you saved their life. Now they're even more obsessed with you, and it's like, it can be really scary. But you will never see a K-pop idol act up on Twitter, act up on YouTube and TikTok, because they're too trained, where they're like, our fans are our life. In a sense, they are. But then that also gives the fans like, well, you're my life, and I'm going to do what I can to keep you in my life, if it's good or bad. So,
but what? That's actually one of the things that I kind of like, that the idols are told, just don't say anything weird on Twitter. Avoid,
not just on Twitter, anywhere.
Anywhere. Just don't say anything weird. And we'll be good. And I think a lot of more people should have that in their contracts all over the world.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Yes. Well, that's what's unfortunate about like Sully, for many reasons. When she took her own life, was like, she was very outspoken. Like, she was very into like promoting feminism in Korea, which is still frowned upon. And would often wear t-shirts with no bras, just to be, I'm a woman, I'm proud of my body, whatever. And lots of people came after her, and lots of cyberbullying because of it. And that's part of why she took her own life, because she got so cyberbullied by people for being herself and wanting to speak freely, in a society. And just
so sad.
It's really sad.
You see, because as an idol, you're supposed to be pure, innocent, and you're not allowed to have your own personality.
No.
We don't.
So we talked about this before, but I mean, how do they date? I mean, because I did watch one of the videos about dating
in secret.
Yeah, it is in secret.
But I mean, it's got to be like so secret.
Yeah. Like, how do they even see each other? Like,
have you heard of the Inkigayo sandwich?
Yeah, yes. So please explain this to them.
Tell me and Ricky.
Tell them what Inkigayo is first.
Inkigayo is a music show. It's a weekly show where groups perform, and basically, like, if you're the most popular group for that week, you win an award. And so lots of idol groups would come together on these music shows, and they would have cafeterias where people would eat. And
because they're there like 12 hours sometimes.
This would be like the only rare time that other K-pop groups would interact with each other. So this would be the only time you'd ever see boy groups and girl groups together in one room. Other than that, they're at their dorms or they're at their company's building training. So this is the only time they ever get to interact. And so what they would do is they would put their number on a piece of paper, and then they would slip it into like a sandwich, and then they would buy a sandwich for another idol. And then when the idol gets a sandwich, they open it up, and in the paper is their number. It's like, hey, call me. I thought you were cute, or whatever, whatever their special message is.
Yeah.
And then
Man.
from there on, they would like meet up in secret or whatever.
Yeah.
I wish I
And-
knew that when I was like in high school.
I know, what a
What
brilliant
a great
idea.
yeah.
That was a pretty good one. Like me
Isn't that
just
great?
giving out sandwiches left and right.
Or
Whoever wants,
or
I'd say,
I was
someone
like,
has to
do you
call.
like
What's my
salami?
oh no.
or like a common thing that K-pop groups would do is they would give each other their albums, and it's just a common practice. You would one album or one group would give another group their album, and then they would give their album in return. And so what they would do is they put their number inside the album, and they would get in contact that way. Or it would be like your Kakao Talk username nowadays because it's more convenient than texting.
Yeah.
I hope that never.
Yeah, and a lot of them
happens in
also
college,
have
really.
right, and a lot of them also have like, well, they have public Instagram, a lot of them have private Instagrams where they or social media, they have private ones where they connect that way as well. And that way, like the company can't even see it. The people like that, and it's like they can do it in secret. It's rare that it's accepted, but it is on occasion.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Has there ever been a public couple?
I think there's only one right now, right?
There's been a couple.
Well, I think the biggest one is Hyuna and Dawn, probably.
Hyuna and Edon.
yeah,
well, technically, Jenny and Blackpink hasn't, or Jenny and G-Dragon haven't been confirmed, but it's pretty much accepted.
It's pretty obvious that they're together. Yeah. They're kind of But Hyuna was a big star.
It's been all but confirmed.
Yeah, and that's a giant because G-Dragon was first generation or second generation K-pop, and like with one of the biggest groups in the world, Big Bang, in the same company.
What, Big Bang and Blackpink?
Blackpink are the same company, yeah. Same company.
But I mean, no, members are dating?
Well, supposedly, yeah. It's pretty confirmed. G-Dragon's probably only,
but
he's probably about 6 years older than her, 7 years older than her. I think he's like 30, 31, and she's like 24.
But they haven't said no either.
Yeah,
they haven't said no either.
Korea,
but she also dated before that. She dated Kai from EXO, who's a big star, and in the world seemed to accept it.
She's like the Madonna.
The world seemed to accept that one. They were okay with that. And the G-Dragon one, they seemed to accept. And Jiho dating Kang Daniel, who's also a big solo star, also from a group, they seem to accept that one. But it's rare because you get these cases where, I forgot what group it was, where a member got married and had a baby, and he had a very small group of fans show up at the building to do a protest. He should be kicked out of the group because he betrayed us. I'm like, because he has his wife and a baby now? Okay, you guys need some help. So it's like,
Don't you know, I bought like 5 of your albums and I went to 2 of your concerts. So therefore, I deserve to be your wife.
Yes, I deserve your
wife.
I own
you.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
I deserve to be your wife. I bought 5 albums. Come on, dude.
Seriously,
I know I'm just some random stranger on the internet, but I did buy 5 albums.
Solar from Mamamoo. I watch her YouTube channel even in Korean. You should love me. I'm just saying.
I feel like Korea has given us the closest we're ever going to get to real life Shakespeare. Like up to a point,
maybe
you have the companies as the big families and all the idols just trying to. But that's part of the fantasy of it as well. Like I'm a little surprised that it hasn't caught on as much, because if you have one idol from one group and one idol from another one in a relationship, you have like the union, like the Clash of Titans, but in love.
Yeah. And it could be a beautiful thing, but again, it's that whole thing, like fans feel like they're theirs and I want them for me.
Well, there is a huge but I mean, there's also big shipping fandoms, like for BTS, there's a huge ship fandom.
Oh, every group has a shipping fandom of like within their own group, like people.
Yeah, within the group, which is
pair up all the female idols together in the group, and BTS they pair up different members together, and it's like, okay, and sometimes they'll play it up. You'll see like them put their arms around each other just to be playful because they know they've been shipped, and that's really funny to watch. And then
90% of the time
they held
it's a joke.
Each other's hands. Yeah. Oh, it absolutely.
90% of the time it's a joke with the fandom, but there are some fans that take it seriously. Maybe there actually are in a relationship together.
Yeah, YouTube videos are like proof that Jungyoung and Nayeon are a couple. You're like, okay, calm down.
I don't know. I think people take their shipping pretty seriously.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. But then, like, I love it when the group makes fun of it. Like in one concert, Jungyoung and Nayeon pretended to kiss, and the fan, look at that! Like, okay, they're fucking with you guys. Calm down. They know what's up. They're messing with you. Well, the other thing I want to briefly, I don't want to go over too much, but like also, like with any industry, scandals can happen.
Oh yes, scandal.
And
You
we
mentioned some
had
scandal, which
we don't want to go into
Dish.
much. The Burning Sun scandal was one of the biggest last couple of years.
Well, wait, dish a little bit on that
But
because
so basically, I know a little bit about this, Paul. I'm not sure how much of the Burning Sun scandal you know. It's basically was like
I made a video about it.
Oh, they okay. Paul, please take it away.
so
because
it's all you. All you. You have it.
In
You have
the
pedestal.
comments. We'll put a link in the comments to Paul's video about the Burning Sun scandal.
Yeah. So
you
he
got
has
this.
he has a lot of. So from what I understand, there's a club called the Burning Sun, and Sungri from the group Big Bang that G Dragon was a part of and the leader of, was part owner of this club with other people and maybe some other idols were involved. So that club got busted because they found texts and emails and also the messages between Sungri and these other like K-pop guys and whoever were part of the club, part of the group, involving drugs, prostitution, all sorts of other things. And they found proof involving like we got businessmen coming in today. Let's get the good girls to come in, or whatever, somebody use some certain term to come in and make sure it's those girls, you know which ones, and they try to be careful, but they were definitely like it. So
they got sloppy.
Some of them got put away. Sungri's in the army right now. He's going to go on an army trial. I think he already is on one, and probably their careers are over, completely. There's no way they're going to ever come back. Paul, that was a very basic of it. Paul definitely has more specifics about it, but I know I left out stuff. But
Paul, was there any other really juicy details that we need to know?
So a lot of the people that were involved in like this whole entire scandal, a lot of them were actual like K-pop idols, like big name K-pop idols. So the biggest name you mentioned earlier was Seungri from Big Bang. Jung Jun-young was a solo artist. He was pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
There was a member from CN Blue that was involved, a member from Beast, a member from I'm forgetting all the names. It's been a while.
Second generation K-pop.
When did this happen?
2019,
this was like 2 years,
I believe.
No, 19, yeah.
Early 2019, like January.
Yeah.
January,
you're right.
February 2019.
Something like that. Yeah.
So I've had things. I mean, drugs might be illegal, but the rest of it sounds pretty consensual.
Prostitution?
What do you mean, like the prostitution?
Well,
I mean that's illegal too, Heidi.
Actually, there's a lot of movement to make sex work not illegal. So I'm just
not
saying,
in Korea.
I'm just saying,
until it is legal, it's still illegal.
I'm just
marijuana is still illegal in Korea. So
I'm just saying to point out like this scandal. I mean, it's a scandal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a little creepy. It's definitely creepy. But I'm also just saying it's mostly what we would call consensual. Businessmen come in looking for a good time. Sex work is nothing wrong with sex work, really.
Right.
So
but in Korea, there's things like that. Sure. But they have different laws there, as you know, and they have different, like I said, like there's a whole thing with like even marijuana, any type of like over-the-counter drugs you can get arrested and put in jail for. So that's what we were talking about. I think,
so it's a little more scandalous. I get it. I mean,
like
it's a
when you see people kiss in public, if you ever see a kid start kissing another kid, people are like, what? Okay, what's happening? So it was definitely huge. It was one of the biggest scandals in years.
Yeah, there was also one part of what they were doing is like
there's some money. The there's some maybe money laundering or money something. There's definitely some illegal stuff going on.
But guys like the guys in like the chat group or the guys in like the group, they would go and have sex with these women, and then they would have it recorded, and I think they would like spread it in between them.
One of the guys videoed some of the recordings. Yeah.
And I think some of the people that like they were having sex with were like big name people, like actresses, other idols, and then they would spread that through everyone in their web or everyone in their connections and stuff. Like, hey, check who this is a video of.
Yeah, which also
that's definitely illegal.
Yeah, which also is kind of one of the reasons why
non-consensual.
Like Korean feminism's like Me Too movement, which was actually well more than a year before our Me Too movement here in the United States. That type of thing gave way to a lot of revenge porn as well. Which is one of the reasons which is one of the reasons I believe that Guhara, some people said that she committed suicide because her ex-boyfriend was threatening to release something that they had recorded together. And on top
they had a very tempestuous relationship. Yeah.
So in fact, the big protests in Korea happened with hidden camera stuff that men were doing
in bathrooms. Yeah,
bathrooms
really
and stuff.
bad.
And
right.
It's really big.
that's when you
really
have so much. I tell you, when I research, I go into dark places.
Yes, yeah.
But it's interesting because it's a lot of and I don't want to sound like K-pop is evil or anything, even though I've said a lot of negative stuff. You kind of just want to see an industry that's fair, but you can say that of all industries. If you want to talk about Latin American bands and how they're treated, and you mix religion up into that as well, which is a whole other ball game. You know, every culture, every country, every industry has their own patriarchal stuff to deal with. And yeah, I think that as I was researching this, I think that that was one of the things that popped up the most, like recordings, using them against idols, so on and so forth. And I do kind of feel for the moment that I feel like being a female idol is definitely 100 times harder than being a male one.
No, I think being a female in the world is 100 times harder than being a male. But yeah,
but
sure.
The specifics though are interesting. And I think that the whole phenomena, both the good and the bad, because I think I told you yesterday, the explosion of creativity that is not only K-pop, but Korean horror, Korean manhwa stories. It's just like, I feel like some people have evolved more in the world and some haven't.
For sure.
We might be a little bit behind.
Yeah, I think so.
But it is interesting on the specifics on the good and the bad.
Yeah, and I think some of it comes down. I don't want to go too much into this because we probably should wrap up soon. But the whole idea of like the joy of seeing a famous person fall. Now, Sungri and everybody, those guys deserve it, absolutely, of course. But there's also like this whole thing that happened recently, the bullying scandal that happened earlier this year. Was giant in K-pop because it was something to do with like some website was shutting down a certain talk area, and so all of a sudden these stories came out of like people that went to school with famous idols or actors were like, they bullied me, and it was like, okay, and you see a lot of the stories came out were false, but some were like maybe true, and right away the companies, the people like, yes, I was kind of jerky, I apologize, I will reflect on my life, things like that, you know. I mean, they were taken out of activities for a while, and then like you see like Hyunjin from Stray Kids, he's back now, he was out for a while. And you see like Chu was clearly falsely accused because, my God, Chu's the most adorable person in K-pop right now, in Luna.
It's so funny.
It's always the adorable ones, Jimmy. Come on.
No, there's no way Chu was a bully. There's no way.
No, it's so funny because like she was like, yeah, Chu used to bully me when I was in middle school or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the company called her out on it. And she's like, hey, we're gonna sue you because this never happened. And they were like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean it. It was just a prank.
yeah.
It was just a prank, bro.
Like the company started shooting back, and then there's one still kind of big one that's sort of in litigation, or not litigation, but like, because at first we thought it was going to come out on her side, but Soojin from G Idol, at first they came out, you know, she used to smoke and swear and pick on us, and it was like the older sister of some girl that she apparently bullied. And she didn't say anything for a while. The company, I guess, are coming with their strategy, and she finally came out, and I didn't do this, and she started giving an example, like, okay, she's got her defense, she's ready, but the other girl's not backing down either. So I think they're going to go into some sort of litigation. They've tried to like let's meet up and talk. So she's still out of activities.
Wow.
But my whole point is like, I get some of these idols are 20 to 24 years old, so they're not that far out of school. But this is something Paul and I talked about when I first interviewed him about his book. It was like, aren't you allowed to make mistakes when you're a kid? Like, kids are jerks. It happens. And like, you've clearly grown and moved on. And like, to have this come back and haunt you, I just feel like, listen, I feel I was bullied as a kid, not harshly. I wasn't beat up. It wasn't every day. I definitely had my share of a couple of bullies, and it didn't scar me.
How many wedges?
I get to some people it can. Yeah, okay, 3. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, given or that I got, no. But yeah,
you
it's like
a giver or you know, a receiver.
Listen, when you're in jail, you gotta do anything to survive. Anyway.
No.
But it's like, but it's like, it reminded me also of like that you saw Flatliners, the Kevin Bacon, Julia Roberts movie. It's a movie from the 90s, Paul, if you ever saw it, but it's like about these young doctors, and they start doing these experiments underground where they flatline and then have their friends bring them back to life. But as they flatline, they experience these out of world experiences or past experiences, and then those experiences start to haunt them in real life. So Kevin Bacon's was this young girl he apparently bullied when he was a kid. She would come back and torment him in his dreams and his walking life as the kid, saying things he would say to her. So he seeks her out as an adult, and she sort of forgives him. But if I remember correctly, she was kind of like, I I don't even think about this anymore. This isn't a big deal to me because you were not important in my life. And I feel like that's the case with some things. Like that wasn't a big deal to me. Those two jerks picked on me when I was young because I didn't even think about those guys. So I feel like some of this, while yes, I don't want to take away from genuine people that are being bullied, but I feel like some of this is that whole, I just want to take a star down.
Yeah.
Screw them. They were mean to me once. I want to take them down. Oh, I have mental anguish the rest of my life. Maybe that's true, and it sucks and it's unfortunate. And then you need help, and they need help. But I feel like a lot of it is like I just want to take down somebody big.
Especially
So,
when
who
you
knows?
have the fandom element in it, and you know
Yeah.
how
Yeah,
how aggressive it can get from both
yeah.
sides.
That's the
So,
thing. You get people defending Sujin, people going after her. It seems like most of the fandom is kind of underside. I feel. Do you feel that, Paul? I don't know. With her specifically, Sujin. I don't know. It's kind of half and half, maybe. Oh, your mic's off. Sorry.
I feel like it's mixed with Sujin.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
don't know.
tough because it's like you see
Jury's
someone
still
like,
out.
yeah, it would seem like her. It doesn't seem like you could see like, yeah, she probably was maybe had a little something going on, but it feels like maybe she's grown. But then it's a lot of it started with AOA, this group from like second, third generation, and there was a bullying within the group with each other. That's sort of become a thing too. There's a big issue with this group called April going on right now with bullying with them amongst members. With AOA, it was this girl Mina, part of the group, who came out and said that the leader Jimin had bullied her for years. And honestly, when you look at Jimmy, you think like I could see her being a real nasty piece of work. Like you see her in things, and you see videos of her where Mina's crying her eyes out. She's like in the corner on her phone, not caring, and it's like, but Mina also has a lot of mental problems. She's posted about self-harm on Instagram a lot too. So but I certainly believe her. But like Jimin's career's over. She's probably never coming back.
Wow.
But yeah, but that was probably rightfully so because she
Yeah.
clearly was a very not so nice person. So it's really tough. It's tough to see. You see that within the company bullying happen. You see that these former idols were supposed bullies. But again, with the latter, I feel like aren't people allowed to make mistakes? Did you physically hurt
Well,
somebody? I don't know.
I think we've talked about that on here a few times. I know I talk about it on my other
Mhm.
podcast, More to Come, Publishers Weekly's podcast,
Yes.
of comics, graphic novel news. But we live in a time where mistakes are quickly called out and don't die. They're not quickly forgotten at all. And but people love a comeback too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and we were just talking
Brave
about
girls.
yeah. But but I was like the only person who's kind of come back from a social media
Mhm.
was
Canceling or whatever.
canceling was James Gunn.
mhm.
Yeah.
And he's
Pretty
and
well,
it's
too.
and he's doing well, and he's talking about it, he's acknowledged it, but the key is that it happened a long time ago. He
Yeah.
doesn't do it anymore. So
Exactly.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
But
Can't make mistakes in your past that
yeah,
weren't
so
necessarily harmful
but
or
it's
physically harmful.
super
It's rare.
we're in uncharted territory here, to be
Yeah.
honest. So
Yeah.
but
Stuff.
that could be a whole nother episode. There could
Absolutely.
be 17,000 episodes. So
Yeah. Maybe we'll do it next week because I'm not sure if I can get that idol to come
so
on.
yeah, so are we wrapping this up next week?
Yes, next week's gonna be the end of K-pop month, and I was hoping to get a K-pop idol, a formal idol, on to talk, but a few of them didn't get back to me, and one did, and they weren't available, interested, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, I understand, and but I'm gonna try another one, a couple more, and if not, I'll find a topic to talk about,
Okay.
for
All right.
K-pop.
So it's
There's
a
plenty to
surprise.
talk about.
So Jimmy, so we have a special surprise guest star, is what you're saying.
Hopefully, we'll see. I mean, BTS. Oh no, I gave it
No.
away. Oh no. Oh, that would have been our biggest episode. Let me tell you what, because Army would have showed up. Your YouTube would have crashed if it was doing this on YouTube live with them. Amazing.
Get better lighting.
Exactly.
Sure.
Please, I would rent a studio for us if we had to here in New York, where we can show up. So working on it. We'll see. If not, we'll find another subject. Maybe we'll explore another group or two or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's to wrap it up here is like, becoming an idol isn't easy, but becoming anything isn't easy. But there's a lot. I know we did sort of in talking about some sort of negative thing, but there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, you're doing what you love, and you're like I said, you're surrounded by other professionals that love it too, and you can go on to a long career in aspects of it, or go from being an idol to an actress or an actor, or like Psy, who now owns his own company, and now he contracts idols of his own, and it's really it's a people see not a lot of negativity, but you can find that in any career, I think. So I think if I was young and this was happening, I'd be auditioning for stuff like this. Absolutely. Especially when I was a young, like, street dancer, this stuff would appeal to me big time. Like, those moves, those K-pop moves. Maybe should do like choreography alone.
So Jimmy, there's still TikTok. There's still TikTok. And just do another callback to another great episode.
I can come back. I can become the oldest K-pop idol in the world.
You could do
it. I know I can.
You were talking about the complicated dances, but remember another great episode of Comic Beat Insider was when we talked about The Greatest Showman. And that one scene where Hugh Jackman and Zac Efron do the dance in the bar, which is a whole TikTok, thing where people learn. I was watching. I was like, oh, let me see. Oh, I'll throw out my bed. Anyway, it's a pretty complicated dance, and these TikTokers are just.
I used to be able to do those dances, but today I probably couldn't. I have a lower bad back pain, so I don't know if I can do that anymore. But I'd be like, we'll get the. Oh, all right. Leave it to you guys. Keep going. So is it worth it? I guess it depends on who you are and what you have, if you want to keep doing this. But I say, with anything I say, if it's something you really love, give it a shot. So they do have a lot of for our fellow Americans, they have a lot of auditions in America. So look out for those in big cities, New York, Chicago, I'm sure, LA. There's all sorts of, like, the big companies have auditions out there all the time. So if you're young and listening, give it a shot. If your kids want to do it, check it out. You too could become a K-pop idol. You never know.
Anyone can be a star.
I mean, the four of us could form a group right now. Just saying.
Okay. What's our song we always sing on here? What's the song I always sing?
I don't know. I can't remember. But again, no more than 5 seconds,
please. Jesus Christ Superstar. There you go. Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Anyway. All right. That's enough.
All right, guys. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us. To Ricky and Paul, thank you so much. We appreciate it, Paul. We appreciate your expertise. Ricky, we appreciate your research and deep dive. You too, which I love.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul, for joining us, and Ricky also. Yeah, it's great having you here.
Yeah. I'm like, till next week, I'll keep you guys. I'll hit you up on social media what we're gonna do next week. If by what's today, I don't know. If by the weekend I don't get that idol, I'll come up with the topic we'll come up with. So we'll see. We'll see. Jenny's gonna text me in a minute now. We'll see what happens. Her and Rose might come on. We'll see. We'll talk.
Oh, sorry. She's busy texting me.
Oh, okay. Well, if she has a minute, just tell her to give me a shout. But thanks everyone for listening and checking out live, and of course listening on the Comic News Insider version, the audio version. We appreciate it. My name is Jimmy Aquino, the host producer of Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture. You can find me online at Jimmy Aquino, JIMMYAQUINO.
And I'm Heidi McDonald, again, editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com. You can find me on all social media as Comics Ace, COMIXACE. And, I'm even on Pokemon Go as Comics Ace. So that's me.
Oh, look at that. All right, and how about you, Ricky?
I'm Ricky. I write for The Beat and for a couple of other sites. And you can find me at Ricky Serrano 24, I believe. I'm not up to speed on my socials, so
I think it's 27 actually.
87 or 24,
something like that. Yeah,
it's all related to birthdays. One of them will work.
And Paul, how about you?
So you can find me on YouTube as The Asian Theory, and for anything related to Asian culture, history, or entertainment, a lot of the time that's K-pop. So once again, that's The Asian Theory on YouTube.
And we'll put a link down in the description. And also, if you like this, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button. so you can know every time there's a great episode of Comic Beat Insider coming your way.
That's right, guys. And as always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
All right.